Hi everyone. I believe that we are live. I'm gonna try to in this mm, unannounced broadcast. I'm gonna try to answer the questions that you might have, but also inform you about our opinion on the unprecedented U.S. military aggression against Venezuela that was reported today. Um, yesterday actually, January the 3rd, Saturday, January the 3rd, in Caracas and other parts of Venezuela. So I know that there might not be too many people joining us, but anyway, I believe that it's important to set the record and to record, our to keep some sort of historic evidence about our impressions on what happened in Venezuela today. So basically, what I can tell you is that around 2 a.m. today, yesterday, I mean, um, most of Caracas, half of Caracas went into a blackout that is actually still affecting the majority, half of the people, of the population of Caracas, including us. And immediately after that blackout, we began hearing explosions and unfamiliar aircraft noises. So that's basically how this mess began. In my humble case, I was able to what I decided to do is go outside the building where I live. There's a parking lot where you have a good visual of several areas around our neighborhood. And I did a live stream with not too much visibility, but at least I believe that it helped people hear, uh, especially hear the explosions, the sound of the explosions, and the sound of the aircraft that were not, at least in the case of the locations that we are right now, were not extremely close to us. Um, so we spent like 40 minutes in that location and doing the live stream yesterday, and we had to stop the live stream because we were being called by news outlets asking us to give interviews, and we haven't stopped doing that for the last almost 23 hours. I'm happy that we are able to give our impressions about our honest Chavista impression about what just happened today in Venezuela. But we are exhausted. But we believe that is our duty to let the people know what is really happening in Venezuela. So, one thing that I want to highlight, and feel free to ask questions. The idea of this live stream is that I can answer any of your questions in the best of my capacities. You have to take into consideration that I'm pretty exhausted right now, but I believe that I'm still pretty sharp, mentally talking. So I will try, at least in the best of my capacities, to answer all your questions. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that we read a lot today in social media platforms about the about this comparison between Syria and Venezuela. They say that basically what happened in Syria is exactly what is happening in Venezuela, and that's completely inaccurate if you ask me. There are several important differences. I mean, President Maduro did not took a flight to Washington by will. I mean, he was abducted by U.S. military forces. So that's the first and most important difference. And another extremely important difference is that in the case of al-Assad in Syria, uh, um, President Maduro has an extremely strong uh, support base that was evident today with street demonstration of people supporting Chavismo, demanding the return of President Maduro, and condemning the U.S. attacks, the U.S. strikes, uh, but also with the statements of all the state institutions. I'm talking about the Supreme Court, the National Assembly, the public ministry, uh, um, most of the governors of the country, most of the mayors of the country, they make statements today showing that first that there is unity in the constitutional order in Venezuela, and secondly, also demanding the return of President Maduro, which is something that was also, demanded by Vice President a few hours later by President Delcy Rodriguez. Actually, she is currently the acting president of Venezuela, as is mandated by the Constitution. And that's something that we can stop to talk a little bit in detail in a few minutes. So that these statements and these press conference and resolutions uh, uh, give us, especially Chavista forces in Venezuela, a lot of strength, because we were in the dark, and when we first hear about the abduction of President Maduro, that was a hard hit. But it's important to say and reiterate actually something that we have been saying for several months already, since August when this craziness began, which is that despite the importance of President Maduro as the current leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Chavismo is bigger than its leadership. Chavismo is a grassroots movement that goes beyond the leadership of Chavismo. And that is extremely important for, especially for people outside Venezuela to understand. And in that sense, what happened today somehow reaffirm our claims in that sense. Uh, Chavismo will remain as a force in Venezuela. Is actually the constitutional represents the constitutional authorities of most of Venezuela, and it's going to remain like that even under new U.S. military attacks. So. What I'm trying to tell you is that it's not going to be easy to get rid of other discussion that is happening right now, especially after the appointment of Delcy Rodriguez as acting president a few hours ago. That the Constitution also mandates that after appointing the acting president in the absence of the president, if that absence occur uh, before the half of the term of that president, the active president to call for presidential elections in 90 days, 3 months. So right now, constitutionally talking, President Delcy Rodriguez will have to call for presidential elections in the coming weeks. What that scenario represents for Chavismo is a new challenge. But if you ask me if the elections are going to be held today, and even if Venezuelan institutions allowed this far right politician Maria Corina Machado to return to Venezuela to run for elections, even in that very improbable scenario, Chavismo will win those elections. Uh, some of you might be asking yourself why, and my answer to that, we have like several parts. First, Maria Corina Machado is despised, but many, even in her political groups. She was always a divisive actor in Venezuelan politics, even among far right Venezuelans. And that haven't changed. Actually, that has worsened in recent months because of her behavior, because of her response against Trump aggression against Venezuelan migrants, because her constant call for military invasion against Venezuela, and of course that affects her a lot. In addition to that, if the far right opposition in Venezuela decide not to use her as the candidate, the chances, I mean, there are not too many visible, important far right politicians capable of winning a presidential election against Chavismo at this point. So what I'm trying to tell you with this is first, of course, about the strength of the Chavista forces, but also that this very probable victory of Chavismo in the face of new presidential elections will represent a new threat against Venezuelans and Chavismo, because the US, of course, won't be happy if Chavista forces win again a presidential election, as we have been doing for the last 20 years. So they, of course, will begin with their claims of fraud, and that has happened ever since President Chavez took power in 1999, and they have, in most of the cases, claiming fraud ever since. So, so I mean, what I'm trying to tell you is that. Um, that victory won't be seen uh, in good eyes by the US, and that represents a risk for more strikes. So, and for more military, intervention against Venezuela. So, if you ask me, and that's what I've been trying to say in recent interviews that we have been given to outlets, several outlets, is that we are in some sort of a kind of a loop situation in which all the outcomes do not paint a positive outcome in terms of the security of Venezuela. So we should, Venezuelans and Chavistas will need to discuss what in how we will approach that reality that I'm trying to let you know about. Thank you, DVEPPS, for the solidarity. Un abrazo, compas. A lot of friends from Milwaukee we have from the time we were in Chicago working as diplomats for Venezuela a few years ago already. So that's basically the complex scenario that is right now we are facing in Venezuela. I'm hopeful. I mean, we have in Chavismo and in the Chavista leadership an important, good strategies, political strategies. So I'm pretty sure that our, the top authorities of Venezuela, of Chavismo, will find the most responsible way to deal with what is happening and what is about to happen. And what else? Again, I want to highlight that Venezuela is not Syria. Chavista forces are in control of Venezuela, despite what happened with President Maduro, uh, and is we are very far from being Syria. We will remain in power unless the U.S. do something extremely aggressive, which might represent putting boots on the ground here in Venezuela. And even in that scenario, which is the more complex for the US, they will face a big resistance from the Venezuelan people that we have been preparing for years to deal with that scenario of US military invasion. These comments take me to something that has been also being repeated a lot in mainstream media in recent hours, which is that people questioning how was it possible that President Maduro was abducted so easily, and that's like an extremely very good question. I'm not able to answer that question, but I believe that we cannot. Spend too much time dealing with that situation. I'm pretty sure that eventually we will have more insight about what really happened there. But the reality is that President Maduro was kidnapped, was abducted by the US military. And another sad reality is that not a single bullet was shot from the Venezuelan side, as far as we know, which is sad. But we can neither diminish the ways of the military apparatus of the US that is able to jam electronic communications, that is able to destroy whatever they want. So there might be some sort of explanation uh, uh, about this fact associated to the easy way that some people see and many of us see as the way Maduro was abducted. Let me read Compass from Milwaukee. They write Viva Venezuela. Solidarity Canada. David Sim writes Venezuela Libre. Thank you, Compass. Thank you for writing there. And the idea of this live stream is to answer your questions. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have. As I told you at the beginning, we just want to set the record straight and keep a record about what was in our head after this historic moment. Venezuela has been never been invaded before during its Republican lives. I mean, for the last 200 something years, Venezuela have never faced a military invasion of this magnitude. The only similar present to this one was the blockade, the naval blockade that some European country enforced in Venezuela in the early 20th century when Castro was not Fidel, not the Cuban one, another president of Venezuela at that time. Castro was the president of Venezuela during that blockade. So this is an extremely historic moment, not only for Venezuela, but I believe that for Latin America, this set a terrible precedent for many countries in Latin America and around the world. It's incredible how disrespectful of the rule of law, the rule of international law, the U.S. regime is incredible. How what are they capable to do? It's important to say that some reports out there talks about 40 casualties, 40 see, Venezuelans killed by the U.S. strikes. Those are unverified reports, but they are running out there. I haven't seen official figures, but I'm pretty sure that the 40 casualty number is very optimistic. I'm pretty sure that that number should be eventually go around 80 something Venezuelans being killed by these strikes. And that's another terrible reality. And I'm pretty sure that not all those Venezuelans were Chavista. I'm pretty sure that even far right Venezuelans might be victims of these attacks, even though they are the ones, the most extreme ones, of course, are the ones calling for years for U.S. military operation like this, thinking naively that the U.S. is going to come to save them for the black Chavista dictatorship or whatever they have in their minds. So, what else I wanted to tell you? I want to reiterate that several places in Caracas, I believe that half of Caracas is still under an electricity blackout. So actually, we don't have electricity right now where we are located, and thankfully, we bought a few months ago one of these power stations that can receive energy from solar panels, and that has been extremely helpful for us today because that allow us to do what we are doing right now and what we have been doing all over the day. But eventually, in a few minutes, I believe that that power station is going to run out of batteries, and I will have to wait until tomorrow morning when the sun will feed the solar panels that we are using. So the electricity blackout is an issue. Uh, there's a tense calm that you feel in Venezuela, at least in Caracas at this moment. There is a growing sentiment of rejection and disgust among all Venezuelans, despite their political, positions about what the U.S. have done today against us. Uh, I've been able to talk with anti-Chavista people during the day, and they are not happy. They are not celebrating as some crazy people say out there. I'm pretty sure that there should be a few far right crazy people celebrating what happened today, but most of them should be those that lives in Florida or places like that. But the majority of Venezuelans are rejecting this because this is disgusting. This is an atrocity, and this is something that can never happen to any country or any people around the world. Um, Let me read what the compact from Milwaukee wrote. Thank you for taking your time and share the information on the circumstances. Thank you, compa, and God bless you all. Rights are mercy. Thank you, Compass. I want to try to answer their questions. I'm trying to cover the most important thing that has been happening today. Wow, the electricity is back exactly at this moment. I'm extremely happy. Wow, this is great. At least, give me 1 second. Wow, it's crazy because the building that is in front of us do not have electricity, but we have. Maybe they have been trying to restore electricity in several, by steps, as it usually happens. But I'm extremely happy because we have electricity. Yes, thank you, Compass, for being happy. That's an important thing. A lot of people were recording cameras, and I saw them today doing lines in grocery stores trying to buy stuff. And it's extremely important to let the people know that this is the time in Venezuela where a lot of people are outside Caracas because it's the end of the year celebration, and there are too many people that lives in Caracas but have their relatives in other parts of the country. So I'm pretty sure that there are many Venezuelan people that live in Caracas that are still outside the city. But despite that, but also adding to that, this time of the year is extremely low in availability of fresh products because especially during the end of the year, the first half of January is extremely slowly in Venezuela. In order to get fresh products, vegetables, fruits, and things like that, because most of the people that brought those things to Venezuela come to Caracas. I mean, come from the interior of Venezuela, from the countryside. So, and now under these circumstances, adding to the seasonal circumstances, I believe that we're going to face a few problems with availability, especially of fresh products. So I saw a few lines today of people trying to buy groceries, and it's absolutely understandable. I myself tried to buy stuff for the last several months, thinking that something like this might happen. So I'm pretty sure I'm pretty happy with what I have. in my kitchen, but maybe other people are struggling right now, and also the problem with electricity also add an additional problem to that, because some people might lost whatever they got in their refrigerators. But I'm extremely happy that right now at least we have electricity, and I hope that everything is going to become normal. But again, the I mean, Trump. It's important to say to mention what President Trump said about he going to run Venezuela. This is something extremely illogical, hard to swallow, hard to understand. But he said, and he has a costume as to say that kind of stuff that is extremely hard to understand. But of course, that's his wish. But the reality on the ground here in Venezuela is that Chavismo is running this country and will run this country for several years, if you ask me. The only possibility for Chavismo to not be running this country is that the U.S. decide to launch a all-in military, invasion of Venezuela. And even in that case, I'm pretty sure that we will give the U.S. Army a hell, because we have been preparing for that for several decades, as I already mentioned. I'm going to read something. Is there any evidence of Venezuelan complicity in Maduro's kidnapping? That's a good question, and I tried to refer to that a few minutes ago when I let you know about this question regarding the easy way in which President Maduro was abducted. That's an important question. I personally believe that the question is extremely valid, because you cannot understand how a country that has been seized for several years already, and that has been under direct U.S. military invasion threats for several months, and the capitation strike threats also coming from the U.S., was not able to protect a little bit better the president. So that is a very reasonable question, but I believe that we cannot spend too much energy in that, because the most important thing is that Chavismo is in power, and all the levels of the institutionality of the country are giving signals of unity, and not only unity, but commitment to Chavismo, commitment to the anti-imperialist nature, the independence nature of Chavismo, and that's extremely important. I believe that is more important than the fact, surrounding the way President Maduro was kidnapped. Of course, I believe that eventually there will be more information. I believe that some of those questions might point to try to put a shadow on the Chavista leadership that is remaining in the country. You know what I mean? Of course, there should be an investigation, and there should be some people responsible for the abduction, despite the U.S., of course, which is the most powerful military in the world, and they have all the technology and all the military might to do whatever they want, and that's why they do these kind of atrocities all over the world, not only in Venezuela. But again, I believe that we have to put the accent on the positive things and not on these, you know, details. I hope that eventually someone will be. There will be more information, and some more details will be available. But at this moment, we are going to just make, imagine what really happened, but that is an exercise that might not be extremely fruitful under the current circumstances. Under the current circumstances, I believe that we need to focus on moving on strengthening, being more capable of rejecting a possible new U.S. Military strike that was announced also by President Trump today, and it's very probable that happened because of what I told you, because the constitutional dynamic of the country will force not force us, but will lead us to go into presidential elections soon, and I'm pretty sure that Chavismo will win that election again. I tell you that, even in the case of allowing crazy far right Maria Corina Machado to run in those elections, Chavismo will win absolutely. But that's a threat also, because that will force the U.S., force between quotations, of course, the U.S. to launch a new military strike against Venezuela. So we have to deal with that reality, and we have to prepare ourselves better to deal with that, to show at least some sort of resistance. I was surprised yesterday when I was doing the live stream that I mentioned you, that I did immediately after the strikes began. I was surprised by not seeing anti-aircraft artillery, anti-aircraft fire coming from Venezuela. So so that was something that surprised me when I was reporting, and I mentioned it several times. But I mean, we have to revise what is happening there, what happened there, but we can also not be too hard on ourselves, because again, we are dealing with the strongest military on the world. The US military is capable of jamming communications, of destroying everything, of buying people, of extortion and blackmailing people. I mean, the US is capable of anything. It's the most evil empire in human history. So we need to be aware of that and prepare better for new, possible scenarios. I also wanted to highlight today what happened today, which was this statement that then Vice President Delcy Rodriguez made during the installation of the National Security Council. Uh, uh, it's important to mention, for those of you that did not watch that video, that in those during the statements, President Delcy Rodriguez was accompanied by all the authorities of the Venezuelan state: military, parliamentary, judicially, all the important actors in Venezuelan politics, important actors in the Venezuelan states were there, and her statements were extremely important. She condemned the attack, the U.S. strikes, and the kidnapping of President Maduro, but also she let us know that they are going to continue the path of Chavismo, the path that President Chavez asked us to follow, and that message was extremely strong and invigorating for many of us. Let me read this other comment: stay focused on being united. Yes, that's something that is extremely important, and I'm happy that we are showing that unity among Chavismo. Suspicion will only lead to division. Yes, absolutely. I believe that if we put too much attention to this issue about the mistakes that might have happened, or irregularities that might have happened in terms of the presidential security or the air defenses in Venezuela during these U.S. strikes. If we put too much emphasis on that, that will might lead to division, and that's something that we don't want to happen. So I believe that what President Delcy Rodriguez did early today, before she was appointed president, in this security National Security Council meeting, was extremely important, and that destroyed a lot of trends and fake news that were circulating about she having negotiated with Trump for a peaceful transition after the kidnapping of President Maduro. What has been happening in Venezuela in the recent hours shows that those trends and fake news were not real. And we need to try to point into that direction and avoid the division that you were talking about. Let me read another scene there. This is the people's way. I was so pleased to hear from Rodriguez. There was a misinformation about her fleeing early. Yes, yes, that was something that happened before the statements that she made around noon in Venezuela. That they were saying that she was in Russia, and a lot of people were claiming that she was in Russia, and immediately a few hours later, uh, uh, that was proved to be a big lie because she appears on Venezuelan TV in front of the, next to all the high political command of the revolution, as we call it. All the authorities, the military and the civil authorities of Venezuela, were in that meeting, and that shows unity, shows strength. And I'm pretty sure that the U.S. should be evaluating how to deal with this situation. In terms of what is coming next, before this scenario of presidential elections that are extremely a very real scenario, I was dreaming that maybe President Trump was going to show President Maduro as a trophy and was going to announce, the retreat of these 18 something thousand U.S. troops that are off the coast of Venezuela. So, but I believe that that doesn't happen. That didn't happen. I mean, that was not my outcome after listening. I didn't actually listen to it. I prefer to read it to avoid being sick in the stomach. President Trump's statements. So so we I didn't see from Trump's statement any intention to retreat and send the troops back home. I believe that he's going to remain there trying to give us hell, and we need to prepare for that. And we need to be better prepared for any new U.S. Aggression against our country. Um, Please, I hope I got your name right. Yes, my name is Jesus Rodriguez. Let me write it down there just in case. I'm the editor of Orinoco Tribune, the editor and the founder of Orinoco Tribune. I don't like to call myself editor in chief, but that is too, I don't know how to say it, arrogant, if you ask me. But I created Orinoco Tribune in 2017, and a few weeks ago we celebrated our 7th anniversary. We are an independent news outlet that, of course, is extremely anti-imperialist, that extremely Chavista, and we have been there already for 7 years, and we have having a lot of support from our readers. We do not receive resources from the government. We do not receive resources for corporations or big international foundations and things like that. We only work extremely hard with the few donations that we receive from our readers, and it's important for you to let the people know about us and let them know that we don't want to become millionaires doing this because we are doing what we love, but we need more support from our readers. And some people believe that because we are Venezuela and Venezuela is full of oil, we should be, uh, bathing in a pool of oil, and that's not true. I mean, we are most of the time struggling. Most of our the people that working on Inoco Tribune, except for me, because I need to eat and pay for things, are volunteers, and they do an amazing job. We have extremely capable and well educated, and politically educated team members, volunteers in our team, and they are the ones that make Orinoco Tribune happen. So I hope that you enjoy our content. We are gonna keep doing it because we love it. And let me keep reading what some people wrote down there. Muy interesante el relato. Les quiero preguntar si, según una lectura que hice en el Twitter de Pepe Escobar, el secuestro fue antes que se vieran las explosiones. Uh, this Regina de la Lata writes that she mentioned that Pepe Escobar wrote something about President Maduro kidnapping happening before the explosions. I'm not sure about that. This is the first time I read or hear something of that sort, but everything is possible. We are not gonna know. I mean, we are in the sea of speculations that is very common in when incidents like this happen. But again, I believe that we have to be a little bit patient and wait for the Venezuelan authorities to run the investigations, to find responsibilities, to look for those ones that did not do the right work, and keep moving on in unity. Because if we began to point at this leader and another leader of Chavismo and accusing them or him or her of being traitors, that's what the far right was. That's what the fascist forces are looking for, and we need to avoid that at all costs. Uh, Venezuela, like any other country in the world, have people from the left, people from the right, people from talking in political terms, from the center, far right, far left. We have everything here, like everyone else. So it's extremely possible that we have far right people in the military, despite the unity and the strength of our military that have passes several tests over the decades, over several years, and has been polished and improving and doing better every time. But there are, of course, far right people inside our military, as there are far right people in the places where we live. So that doesn't mean that they are the majority, but that people exist and we respect them. It's a big lie to say that Venezuela is some sort of dictatorship, whatever. That's one of the worst lies that they have been spreading for several decades already about Venezuela, about Chavez, about Maduro. If you ask me, and I'm try to be extremely truthful when I say this, I believe that Venezuela is one of the biggest democracies in Latin America. I don't want to talk about the rest of the world because they are too far away, but I'm pretty sure that we are one of the biggest democracy in Latin America and the Caribbean, despite all the lies that you hear out there. Despite what they say about we suppressing dissent, and that's a lie. We have been putting some far right crazy people in jail because they are crazy. They are beyond regular far right people, politicians in other countries. They are most of the time terrorists. They organize coup d'etats. They organize disruption. I mean, we have the crazy far right leadership in the world, if you ask me. There might be other places, of course, with similar crazy people like the ones that we have here, but that's a reality. And putting them in jail is not an act of dictatorship; it's an act of justice. Those people needs to respond to law. Uh, and even, I mean, Venezuela, there are infinite cases in which Venezuela have given pardons to these crazy far right politicians, and every after every single pardon and condemnation of a sentence, they continue doing what they love to do, which is sabotaging Chavismo, sabotaging the Bolivarian revolution. So it's important to mention that because there are a lot of lies about Venezuela being a dictatorship. Of course, the biggest lie and the newest one is it's actually not extremely new, but it was positioning extremely hard in recent months, which is that we are a narco dictatorship, a narco terrorist state, which is another big lie. And I hate when people talk about Maduro's kidnapping or abduction like the seizure of Maduro and something like that, which is like somehow like giving like legitimacy to what the U.S. is doing, and that's an absurdity. The U.S. is kidnapping an elected president of a country, and that shouldn't happen anywhere, especially under accusations of narco terrorism or whatever, when Venezuela has been pointing forever, several decades or years, as a marginal country, a marginal player in the international narco trafficking criminal networks. I mean, Venezuela first is a country that do not produce drugs, and, and that has been certified by international organizations specialized in this matter, even from the United Nations. Venezuela is a country of transit of drugs, but actually, the drug that passes from Colombia and Peru and Bolivia, which are the main producers of cocaine in this part of the world, uh, 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 only 5% of that cocaine, according to reports, investigations by specialized agencies, only 5% of that drug passes through Venezuelan territory. And what Trump do not tell you is that most of those small boats that has been struck in this crazy killing spree by the U.S. military in recent months has been struck in the border between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago. And most of that drug do not go to the US. Most of that drug, according to experts, goes to Europe. And also, you can hear President Trump talking a lot about fentanyl. Fentanyl is something that do not exist in Venezuela, and even in South America, doesn't have that impact that it has in the US. And all the people that know a little bit about drugs and have read a little bit of about narco trafficking knows that fentanyl that is affecting the U.S. society comes from Mexico, Canada, and even from inside the U.S. So that's the reality. Another reality is that the U.S. claim that they are fighting, they are in this new war on drugs trade, but they do anything. You don't hear anything that the U.S. government is doing to fight the mafias and the cartels that do exist in the U.S. and distribute all the drugs, and they do not sound anything to try to make an intelligent approach to try to recover people and avoid U.S. citizens to be victims of drugs. And you don't hear anything of that sense. So when you hear these lies about this being a war on drugs tirade, you just feel disgusted, but because you know that that's not a reality, that that's not true. uh, Let me keep reading something. U.S. is also threatening similar actions against other Latin American leaders. Yes, that's an important issue. Actually, today, President Trump mentioned Cuba, mentioned Chile, sorry, mentioned Mexico, and mentioned Colombia as possible next targets, and taking into consideration the craziness that the U.S. Regime is doing with the international order, it's extremely possible that those strikes happen because the U.S. is a rogue nation and the U.S. is a disrupted force in the international world, and they are doing this because they has realized a few weeks ago this national security strategy document was released by the US government, and they openly claim that they are trying to recover the backyard. And they are doing that in desperation because Russia and China has been mainly, but also other countries in the new global south has been disputing the dominance of the US. A few years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the US was the major trading partner for most of the Latin American countries. And right now, China, the US is only the major trading partner in Mexico and Colombia, because China have this place the US, and that's a reality. China is the biggest economic engine of the world right now, and no one can dispute that. And the US is trying, in a desperate attempt, to try to secure a territory that do not belong to it anymore. And that knows that right now the U.S. is not the only power in the world, and that the U.S. that if the U.S. Goes against you, they might have friends in China, in India, in Russia, Turkey, and other important, countries, Brazil, also countries of the South. So that is what's happening. The U.S. is losing dominance in the world. They are trying to secure control of the region to at least secure this part of the world, and because they need the natural resources that we have in Latin America, not only in Venezuela, but of course we in Venezuela have the biggest oil reserve in the world. And what else? And while doing that, they also are getting rid of the bad example, which is between quotations, of course, what they call the bad example of Venezuela, Cuba, or Nicaragua, which are the most progressive and socialist-minded anti-imperialist countries in the region. So, 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 so these are, in my opinion, the three levels, that are behind what the U.S. has been doing in recent months against us. Um, I believe that I need to stop this because I know I was about to say that it was because the power station was running out of energy, but I have electricity already. But the reality is also that I'm exhausted and I need to. But we try to keep doing this depending on the events that happen in the coming hours. If there's no need to do a new live stream, we won't do it because we don't want to drive you crazy. But please share this live stream with whomever you want to let people know about what a real Chavista person that lives in Caracas and is suffering, what the U.S. is doing against his country thinks. And un abrazo, and thank you for joining us today. Nosotros venceremos. Be sure of that. Un abrazo, compas, and bye bye.